Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I bought a house, and that's my big news. That's no joke. I bought a house, and I'm really excited. And I'm Trey, and I'm joined by my co host, Emily. Hi, Emily.
I wanted to do the joke where you were like, "Hi, I bought a house. My name is Emily," and
I'm,
you took it away.
I'm sorry. I'm
That's
always the
okay.
buzzkill.
No, we're fine. We're fine.
It's all good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? I think you're doing like fabulous.
I
Uh,
am I am doing fabulous.
Special day for you, man.
I am very excited today because today's guest, I'm excited to. I've never talked to anyone who's been in the same field as our guest, and I've also never been able to talk to an Olympic gold medalist. So, would you do the honor of introducing our fantastic guest today?
yeah, well, I don't want to I don't want to waste any time, is what I was thinking. So, the top three things that I know Ben does very well and are out there is ice sculpting. He's a musician and a chef. So anyway, welcome to the podcast, Ben Rand.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks
Trey,
for.
this is a special day for you, man. You got a house. That
Yeah,
is
it
cool.
came through about an hour ago, and my
Wow.
realtor sent me this nice little email, and it was like, "Congratulations! I know you're doing stuff,
Yeah.
but congratulations!"
Wow.
Yes,
That's
congratulations.
very exciting. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. But yeah, thank you. I am extremely fascinated by the guitarist sitting behind you.
Hmm.
I'm just going to go out on a big limb here and ask, are you a guitarist?
Yeah. Sometimes I've been known to play the six string guitar. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nylon or steel strings?
Steel, I would say.
Oh,
Yeah. It sounds like you're a little bit of a guitar player.
I've literally just started, and that's the
Yeah.
one piece of information I picked up.
I feel bad for you, man, because it's hard. it's it sucks starting out. It's like very hard. It takes a
Really?
while. Yeah.
I didn't know this about you, Trey.
I've started looking at it. Seth has been putting together his own nickel harpa, and so he was encouraging me
Okay.
to start looking at another musical instrument to kind of pick up and play, maybe something to take to a Ren fair. And what got suggested was the guitar. So I started exploring like the mandolin, the guitar, maybe a lyre of some sort, just something very bardy.
Barty.
Bardy.
Party.
That's the
Do you
word. Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Nope,
was
that's
going
the
to
word.
ask if you're familiar with a nickel harpa because I was not.
If
Is
you're
that
asking me, I am definitely not familiar with it, whatever a nickel harpa is. What is it?
What is it, Trey?
so? It is think of it like a cross between a violin, but you hold it like a guitar. So you have keys that are pressing down on what I would call the fretboard for this analogy, and
Okay.
then you are bowing the strings as you go along.
Oh, okay. So yeah, all right.
Yeah. So, really interesting looking instrument. It's actually got a really nice sound to it, but it is out of. Oh, and Seth is going to kill me because I can't uh, remember the country of origin. I think it's Sweden.
Oh, is
Uh,
it? Okay.
so it's a Swedish folk instrument. Seth, if you're listening to this, please comment with the country of origin, and we will make sure to get that information correct.
I was going to say something like Germany or something, but I mean, maybe you're probably more right. You've been more privy to this than I have, so.
Yeah, but just I'm excited for the opportunity for looking into guitars and kind of researching what kind of sound I want.
Yeah.
How we'll get to, I think, like ice sculptures, but from the music front, um, did the music come first or did ice sculpting come first?
The chicken
Uh,
or the egg?
yeah. I think the music, it was that came first. Yeah. The first time I picked up a guitar was ice. I was just talking with a friend of mine about it the other day, and it's kind of like I said, it's a lot like golf. It's how much you want to get out of it. It can be really frustrating if you're trying to be a perfectionist. But if you can just enjoy it, you want to strum a few chords, and just enjoy it for what it is. You know, won't be as difficult for you.
Sure. What kind of music do you like to play?
I always like playing, rock or kind of jammy sort of stuff. Um, I've been in a few bands and really enjoyed that. Cover bands and bar bands like that. Actually met my wife. This super romantic story. I was playing in a band at an Irish bar. I met my wife there, and we've been married for 12 years. But yeah, I've enjoyed that kind of music. Right now, I play with my church, and I've been enjoying like contemporary Christian music. When I got into the, rock music, there's a lot of like effects and different sounds you can kind of layer with the guitars, reverbs and delays and modulation. I liked those effects. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
And contemporary Christian music leans itself into that, so I've been enjoying that.
That's awesome. Out of the guitars that you have behind you, which one is your favorite and why?
Good question.
I don't know. I get this one is probably the middle one. This is a Les Paul ES339, so it's kind of hollow, and in the middle, semi-hollow. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's guitar players kind of joke about it a little bit, like you just connect with a different instrument. Like some people you connect with closer than others. You meet all these different people, and some of them you just connect with more, and the guitars are that way. Something it matches the sound that you got in your head, and it helps you get it out. And they all got a little different sound. They all play different. I don't know. I enjoy playing each one of them.
That's awesome.
I think that sounds relatable. And I think that goes for a lot of art forms. You
Yeah.
find which tools work the best for whatever art you're trying to make happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a million different, there's chisels out there, but there's thousands of different kinds of chisels. And, one artist might connect more with a certain type of chisel, and that's their main go-to. And for whatever reason, the way it feels, the way it carves, how it fits what's in their head, everybody has, their little binky, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
of creative. So
I am kind of curious. What kind of sound do you look for from a guitar? As you mentioned that they all have their different shape, they have
Yeah.
different strings which produce different sound. What kind of sound are you looking for specifically?
I guess it would depend on the song. With church each week, we got to learn. Pretty much each week we're learning 3 new songs or so, and depending on how the original artist wrote the song, I listen to that. You pick up the different tonality of the guitars and try to match it that way. Some are a brighter sort of sound, and some are a richer sort of sound. And how you layer the sounds, really, essentially, with the effects and the guitars, depending on where it is in the song. If it's a chorus or if it's a down part of the song, you build it up. Sometimes the guitar is just sort of an ambient noise in the background, and sometimes it's way in the front and sort of driving a particular lick or lead line in the song. So I try and match up, the guitar with the song sometimes.
Sounds
That
like
makes sense.
it sounds like you've also got to have an incredible ear for knowing when to be background and when to be kind of driving.
Yeah, it's I think as a creative person, you can kind of get cursed a little bit, because you look at, or at least I do, you look at everything like, okay, how is that made? And instead of like taking it in for what it is, like I go back and forth between that, and I look at, okay, wait a minute, this sound is coming from this, or this artist put these things on top of each other this way, and that's how it was made. So it's just me. I'm always looking at stuff like listening for that specific guitar and those specific parts. How are they getting that sound? I look at the different artists, and it's like, okay, how are they getting that texture on the surface of whatever they're doing? How do they get the color? How do they get the shaping? How do they make it that big? So I'm sort of analyzing everything instead of just sitting back and taking it for what it is.
Awesome. I love that approach. I sometimes I really get lost in the music and like the more emotional side of things. And when my voice teacher is like, hey, come on,
Yeah.
like talk to me. What are you hearing?
Yeah.
I don't always internalize that. So I like when people start from the analysis portion and then work their way back into the expression.
Yeah, I think fundamentally you're drawn to something, whether you really enjoy this type of music or you enjoy, a certain type of art. So like first impression, you're drawn to it. And then at least me and my personality, I end up going deeper into it after that. How was it put together?
Do you sing too?
No, I'm doing everybody a favor and not singing. I'm definitely afraid of it. I don't know. It's terrible. I don't know why I can't get over that fear. It's just I don't sing.
I get it. I do.
You're not a singer either. Good. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, well, I would say that. I look at Trey's face. He's disagreeing with me internally.
Oh,
Yeah.
vehemently.
It's yeah. I don't want to call attention to the one episode that I did sing on, but
Oh.
there is one out there,
Mhm.
and no, I think if you are afraid of singing, listening to the episode where we had Jen Beaupre on is a good one because she talks about like why and what that how to try and put me right on the spot, right on the live show.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, but I think I lived through it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Sure.
But I, as put on the spot like that in public, and maybe like in front of people, I might not have done so well.
Yeah.
At least I'm like in my house.
Yeah. And the
And I could
privacy.
only see a couple of people on the screen and not like a room full. So I don't know, but I'm with you on the singing. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Never take me to a karaoke bar. It's too dangerous. I don't want to go.
I let me pump you up a little bit. Everybody can sing. Everybody can sing. It is the range of notes that you are able to sing that differs between people.
Yes, I
So-
understand that. Yeah.
So I get the hesitancy, but I promise you, you can probably carry a tune better than you think you can.
Yeah.
It's-
I might be able to pull off like a Tom Waits song or something like that. Like,
Ooh,
I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
He's just this growly voice or something. Like, that's not that hard to sing to.
See, like that's difficult for someone else though.
yeah.
I'm not
So-
singing if you guys are trying
No,
to-
we absolutely will
No,
not
no,
pressure this.
no.
No, I will. I'm the last person that will
Yeah.
do that to you.
Definitely.
I
didn't
know
think
what
that
that's
was gonna go.
No, I was just thinking about. There's an app I tried. I can tell you the name of it. Give me a second. It is called Simply Sing. And I tried this app, and it takes songs and changes them to fit your voice. So it takes you through this whole
Oh,
intro
yeah.
where it has you go sing as low as you can. Okay, sing any note, just go as high as you can. Even if your voice cracks, just do it.
Mhm.
And then it analyzes your voice and then will take songs and change the key to fit you so you feel
Yeah.
more confident singing. And then you
Right.
can practice with those songs and get better. And I actually really like that approach. I am sure there are music teachers out there like screaming, but I have to say for somebody who is terrified of singing and doesn't like the idea of singing in public or sing like I don't
Yeah.
want anyone else to hear me. So I tried the app and it actually was pretty good. So
So it matched you to songs that fit your range.
It matches you to songs that fit your range, but it also takes songs that don't fit your range and changes them to fit your range.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's yeah.
It's true. I mean, all our songs every week in church get changed. We can play the same song, but the keys change depending on who's singing it.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Okay,
a
so you
Trey,
get that.
yeah, I'm sure Trey could speak to this. Like everybody's got their own range or key that they sing in. You know?
Yeah, we are running into that in the show that I'm currently in, because if we
Yeah,
start too high, and we're all singing melody on something, I am squeaking out some of those high notes. So I'm like,
yeah,
can we bring it down just a little bit, please?
right. As a guitar player, I get frustrated when that happens. I'm like, I practiced the song in this key, and then you go there and they're like, I'm not feeling it, and they change it on the fly, and I'm like, this is tough.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, it still speaks to your musicality that you're still able to do that, as frustrating as it can be.
I don't know. That's definitely something that summarizes a lot of what I do. It is a struggle a lot of the time, but it comes together. You know, you just keep trudging through it, and most of the time it comes together. So
It's awesome. Um, in terms of, so you've got into music, you've become an accomplished guitarist, um, working from that front. The thing that we've talked about consistently on the show is that people are not just one thing, they are many things. How
mm.
did you make the leap from music into sculpting?
they, I don't know. I guess the only way they were directly related is just it's in me to be creative. You know, it took me a while to sort of refine that, whatever avenue it is. It just I just like making stuff. You know, whatever it was. You know, it just keeps me trying to do something. I don't know. Um, yeah, I started playing when I was 16 guitar, and then the ice sculpting started when I went and worked in the kitchen. Um, it was a little bit. I was like 17. My mom was telling me I had to get a job, and I grew up in this small town in Maine, in rural Maine, and there was one resort, really beautiful place called Migas Lodge, and there was a big resort. Guests would come and stay, you know, throughout the summer. And so working there, washing dishes, that was my first job. Mom's like, you got to start making some money. So I started washing dishes, and that was my first time being in the kitchen. I really enjoyed it and started getting involved with some of the buffets with the chefs. And one of the chefs told me about, I was making lemon baskets, which is just like a very simple, you're cutting a lemon in half with these diagonal cuts, and it's just a little decoration. And I was doing that. It was pretty cool. And the chef was like, hey, do you know people do ice carving? I'd never heard of that before. And I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. And I had no information about it. And so I froze a 5-gallon bucket full of water and then tried to hack at it with like a chef's knife and a flathead screwdriver and tried to make a fish like this. It was so terrible. And I brought it to the chef, and he was kind of a hard out chef. And I was like, hey, you want to put this on the buffet? He shot me down real quick. No, we're not putting that out. and, and then years later, I went into culinary school. I got accepted into this apprenticeship at a resort called the Balsams in northern New Hampshire, and they had actual blocks of ice there, actual ice carving blocks and tools, and they said, this is available for you guys if you want to try it out. We got buffets every week. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So
Yeah.
that was my first time using the chainsaw carving, and I started working with the garde manger chef in big kitchens. The garde manger department was sort of food art and cold food and buffet decorations, appetizers, stuff like that. So I had a garde manger chef that was kind of helping me along, and they were showing me some books, and I was just eating it up. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And just kept carving. You know, we had buffets every week, and I could carve as much as I wanted. So I made a lot of mistakes, and this is a secret to anybody kind of starting out. Try to make your mistakes on other people's money. Because I would like the block, it would like crack, and I'd cut something too small, and it would like fall apart. And there was,
Sure.
there was a lot of stuff not going right at the beginning. And but I got into it and I kept going through it, and then there was this competition held in Stowe, Vermont. It was in January, and so we practiced to it. My Garmager instructor, or some people had told me about it. Like, hey, go check out this competition. I was all right. So I entered as an amateur, entered into it, and it was like an hour long competition. Carved that, and then it was a professional division. When I got finished with the amateur one, I started walking around and I was watching all these professionals finish on their pieces, and it was so cool to watch them. I'd never seen anything like it. Like in the last few minutes of a competition, it get pretty intense because you're putting all these pieces together, and the sculpture's coming together, and then you start to break out like blow torches or weed burners, like big flamethrowers, and you're melting the ice and it's shimmering.
Cool.
And this is all happening in the last few minutes. And there was a guy, Dennis Beach, he had dry ice, and so when you you can fuse two pieces of ice together, refreeze them back together. And he was using dry ice and like sanding the chunk of dry ice and cold blasting these seams that he was trying to put together. And it was like, I'll never forget, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, because like smoke going everywhere, and this sculpture's in the background of it, and like tools are flying. I was like, this is the coolest thing. And I just got hooked onto it from there and just kept rolling with it.
Oh my God.
That sounds more eventful than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the competition. You guys are in Minnesota. Trey, you're in, where did you say you were? Carolina? North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's some events, some live demonstrations and stuff. It's pretty neat to see, because it takes some time for the pieces to come together. And sometimes they can be big, large sculptures, and large attachments get added at the last minute sometimes. And you're like, I don't know if it's going to fall or if it's going to stick. And so it's kind of exciting to see.
What pops into my head is almost like a blueprint, like you're thinking about it ahead of time and almost creating this architectural blueprint. Am I wrong for thinking that, or is it all in the moment?
No, that's an excellent question. No, there's a ton of design put into it, especially at the higher levels of competition, national, world championships, stuff like that. Like a lot of the pieces that I've done, I'll spend like seriously 20, 40 hours just on the design, drawing it and redrawing it. I'm not a great drawer, so I have to just like burn through erasers and draw. But then after you get it done, you have to dissect this drawing you came up with that has to fit a theme sometimes. And you have to dissect that drawing into how many rectangles or blocks of ice you're given for the competition. So if you have a person, you have to figure out, okay, one rectangle's for the chest, another one, and you keep building it up like Lego blocks.
Okay.
And then, so I take this design and then put it on an overhead projector and project it on the wall to scale and draw it onto paper. So I have these large paper templates that are the size of a block that have lines on them that are that segment of a larger sculpture. And so when you have 15 or 20 blocks that you're trying to put together, 300-pound blocks, it helps you stay on track so that you can achieve the original design proportionately and accurately like you want it to. You can wing it, but it saves so much time to have that design all worked out. And I think that's really helped me out along the way was just the preparation before we go to these events. It really, from everything, your tools, I'll even practice components from the individual piece. If it's a human, I'll practice the hand and the hand pose, or the face, or an animal, and you're kind of working stuff out. It's just like music. You practice and rehearse before you go in, and your success is, 9 times out of 10 going to go up from there.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have go-to tools then that you tend to gravitate toward?
Yeah. The process of carving, it primarily is you're going to start with a chainsaw, and you're going to cut the outline of the piece. You're going to try and get the silhouette isolated like that. And then after that, you go in with a chisel, a flat chisel, and you start to shape and add a little bit of depth, rounding stuff off, pushing things in that need to go in, keeping things thick that need to stay thick. After the chisel, then you would go to like an angle grinder, big sanding disc, and sand everything sort of smooth. After that, we have these, pretty much all of the ice carving bits are custom, or tools are custom in some sort of fashion. After you've sanded, you're just sort of stepping down the tools and how fast they can carve. The chainsaw is really fast, so you start with that. And then after you've sanded, then you kind of refine. If you're carving like a hand, it might be like 90 degrees, but then you come in with a little bit and you can start to do the rounding. Or if you're doing a knuckle, you can start to dig out, in between the bones. So you're just pretty much stepping down the tools, large to small.
Sure.
And even finishing with sandpaper. If the temperature is right, you can go down to a fine polish, and it just makes the ice look like glass, when you're done.
Wow. I'm a glass artist, so
that's awesome.
I'm applying what I know, like, to what you're saying, and this is really fascinating. I don't have the risk of it melting in front of me, nor do I. I mean, I've used a torch, but not a flamethrower.
Well, I don't know. Sort of, it sounds cooler saying flamethrower.
It does. I'm gonna start calling mine that now. I should make like a whole label for it and everything. The flamethrower.
The flamethrower.
I like that a
lot. The glass one's cool. Me and my wife did a class. We went into a studio and made some stuff. Like, I've always been fascinated with it. It's awesome. That show on Netflix, Best in Below. Did you watch that?
Blown Away?
Or Blown Away, yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah.
We had Alex Rosenberg from that show on our show
which
earlier this year. He was on season 1. He came in third place.
Yeah. Man, it's just awesome. I kept, again, I guess going back to my preparation, I need that in order to accomplish some of these pieces. And I look at these competitions like that one, Blown Away, where I don't know what the details are, how much they know going into it, but they're put on the spot, to repeatedly keep coming up with these pieces in the moment. And I'm amazed at the talent of so many of these artists and what they make. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think on those shows, the quick thinking is what makes that baffles me. Because even like Project Runway and some of these fashion shows where they're like, oh, you have to finish this by tomorrow and go. And they're like, we're not sleeping.
Right. I need to prepare and sort of just sludge my way through figuring stuff out. I don't know.
And inspiration comes like in waves, and it's not always there.
Yeah, I really admire those people and how they come up with stuff on the fly like that. I guess the big difference is sort of ice is like subtractive most of the time. You're taking away. Or you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think glass, you're adding, right? You're adding as you're going and expanding that way. Like clay, building, clay is sort of that way. You're expanding. So I think the subtractive sculpture is a little different. The carving aspect of it. Mm-hmm. It's just how you're just going about it differently, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't. Carving glass isn't real. I guess. Well, we had Leslie Pike on who did glass engraving, and I guess that was a little bit of carving.
Yeah. I'd say so.
Yeah.
I start to kind of think through like carving it and then it breaking at some point. Like how far can you maybe etch something before you run the risk of breaking it? Oh gosh, I got so far on a tangent and I lost my question. In terms of like you're sculpting something that eventually is going to melt, and like many pieces of art, you kind of there are many times that I want something to stay around. For those people who are maybe I don't know, cautious about doing ice sculpture because they want something to last, how would you market ice sculpting to those individuals?
Yeah, if you're afraid of it melting away.
Yeah.
I would say don't get into it. No, I think like anything else, you gotta enjoy the process. Like not just ice sculpting. I think to get through, life and all these other little things that you do, the more time you can spend enjoying something for what it is, the process of it, I think is the real secret in it. It's not always about the outcome. Like when I was in kitchens, like sometimes I just love just chopping onions. You're just sitting there and you're just chopping away, and it's just production, and it's kind of the monotonous, just zone out and work kind of thing. That's not really results based, Um, but the photography part is big, being able to get a good picture of it.
Sure.
Um,
I
and
was,
that's
yeah.
yeah, that's so unpredictable too. The ice is difficult to photograph. First thing, it's clear, and so a lot of times what is shown in the front is a reflection of what's in the back too. Um,
Sure.
it can get distorted. You'll look, and maybe a strong built man or something. The chest muscles are smooth, but in the back you're seeing some of the back muscles shown through it. Because it's like glass. So sometimes that factors into it, and then the lighting is always difficult. If you're lighting it from the front, it can almost be like a mirror, and the photographs just don't look good. You have these hot spots. So for someone who works with something that's so temporary, to get a bad photograph can be kind of haunting sometimes. But when you
Sure.
get a great photograph of it, it's cool to have that. You know.
Speaking of photographs, I would like to show our audience a few of your pieces because we had a question about which one was your favorite and things like that. So I want to get there. Let me, I lost my, no, there it is. Okay. So this one is, I hope this is the correct order, or we can at least go in this
Oh
order.
no, there's no order. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about this one. This one seems to have photographed really well.
Yeah. So we're going on a technical tangent here. The lighting is from the back, and
Yeah.
so it
Okay.
sort of really illuminates it, and captures it. It's at nighttime too, so if you're able to pull that off, you end up with a good picture. So this piece I made with my good buddy Scott Harrison. We made this in Lake Louise, Canada, up north of Banff. And this has been a ice magic competition that's gone on, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 years almost.
Okay.
Lake Louise is beautiful. It's in the Canadian Rockies, just a gorgeous place. So it's been an awesome international competition. And this was the second time we worked together. And this was, I think it's 12 or 15 blocks of ice. And a block of ice is 300 pounds. It's 40 inches tall, 20 inches
Wow.
wide, and around 10 inches thick. So we get 15 of those stacked up in the site. And you got to take them all apart. You cut up the ice into a bunch of pieces, and then you reassemble it and try to have it look like something. So if you can see in the picture, you can see there's a lot of horizontal lines, and that's where the blocks are sort of stacked up on top of each other like Legos. And now temperature is super. This is going to be sounds so obvious, but temperature is really important when you're carving ice. This is around, if it's around 20 degrees, it's a great temperature. We start to get into 0 or -10, or the coldest I've ever been is -45.
Whoa.
The ice gets super hard, and it changes, and it becomes more brittle. Like your ice cubes that come from your refrigerator or your freezer are probably 0 or -10, and then you pour the water over it, and what happens? It goes, blows
Yeah.
up, cracks.
Oh, sure.
It can't handle that sort of change. So sometimes you'll be doing these competitions, you got to stick these pieces together, and you can't put water on it because the ice, if it was -45, it'll almost explode the
Like
ice.
shock it, right?
Yeah, it'll shock it and just shatter, and everything's not looking good. So you're always battling the temperature. It can really fluctuate. But yeah, this piece came out awesome. Scott and I had a great time doing this. Each of the wings, the upper wings, started from like a 300-pound block and got
Wow.
carved down, and they were just stuck on her, like a 2 by 6 inch kind of space, just stuck on. And we had these supports. You put in these supports in it while you're working on, like you'll stick the wing on and then put a little piece of ice in there to sort of help support it and absorb some of the vibration while you're working on it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
because you're still like, this was a 3-day project. We spent 3 days on this one. And then at the end, the last few minutes of the competition, you start to cut out these supports. And then it gets really hairy because you don't know if it's going to stand or if it's going to crash. And sometimes it crashes at the last minute, and that's pretty brutal. But this one, it stood, and we were real happy with the outcome of it. But this one's one of my favorites because I brought my wife with me. This was the first time she had been there, and she was my fiance at the time. And I told Scott, I was like, hey, man, I'm going to propose to her after the competition. I'm going to put the ring in there somehow. And Scott kept, giving me a hard time during the competition. He's like, dude, you better make this thing work, or else you're out of luck with your plan here for how to propose.
No
and
pressure.
and this was a pretty hairy piece. Like we were barely pulling it off. Yeah, so that's why this one's pretty special.
No, I want to describe this for our listening audience for a second. To me, it looks like it is a fairy of some type, sitting on a small branch with some mushrooms on it that are all carved out of ice, holding up a piece of a crescent moon. And I just got to say, I don't notice any of those horizontal lines that you're talking about.
Yeah.
This looks, there are so many seamless things in here. Wow.
This is really breathtaking.
Yeah, I wish you could see it. So the overall size of this piece is just about 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
The
It would
crescent
have to
moon,
be. Yeah.
the crescent moon is probably about a 3-foot circle. Roughly.
I love this so much.
So you probably can't see, but in the orbs, there's 3 orbs that are hanging off of this.
Yes.
This theme was, what was it called? It was like play on words or something. Man, I can't remember the exact theme, but that's what it was. So we titled this piece Ladybug. That was Scott's idea.
That explains the wings.
Yeah, that was a great idea coming up with it. So yeah, the lady and the bug, and we combined the two. But in these orbs is I carved like a ladybug on the inside of it. You sort of did it like a reverse impression.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
put it in there and then put the 2 halves together. And this one was one of the hairiest competitions because the orb, one of them on the bottom, on the left side, it's like a 1/2-inch rod of ice that was probably about 2 feet tall. And so this is timed. And this was the craziest, like it did not stick until the last millisecond of the competition. Like, we're going to stick it up there, and there's like 2 minutes left. It's the last thing. This whole thing is finally standing, and Scott and I don't know if it's going to collapse or what. I'm like, man, we got to stick this one thing up there. And we put it up there, and you use a piece of metal that's flat and warm, and mix 2 flat surfaces, and then you stick the ice together. We put the metal in the air, we pull it apart, and we're like, oh, it doesn't stick. And we're like, damn, we try it again. It's like 30 seconds left, doesn't stick. And then it finally stuck in like the last second, and we walked away. Like it surprised both of us. We didn't think it's gonna go
amazing.
So, it's pretty neat.
Okay, so like I think I speak for a lot of people, and we need the rest of this proposal story though.
So the next morning I went down, the back to the photography thing. I was like, I'm going to go down and take a picture of it because the morning light looks really awesome on these.
Sure.
When we woke up in the morning, I told her, I was like, I'm going to go take some pictures and come down. And so I put the ring down there, I had the camera set up. And then she came down a little bit later, and I was like, I'll go stand by the ice. I'll take your picture. And then she saw the ring. It was right by the mushroom, like actually kind of by the butt of the fairy. I put the ring right over there.
That mushroom. Okay.
Yeah, she was standing right there, and she noticed the little box, and then then so yeah, the plan worked, but Scott was busting my balls the whole time. He was like, man. And we had a film crew with us that they wanted to film us. They were doing some pilot for some show, and these 2 guys were like in our face filming us the whole time. and they're like, "Are you guys gonna fight if something goes wrong?" Or they wanted the drama. And,
Oh,
and
jeez.
Scott's like super laid back, and he's like, "We're like, no, we're not gonna fight. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." So, but that added the pressure to the whole thing. Like these guys were just with us the whole time. Like, oh, what's going on? You know. So,
That's funny. The
Um,
drama.
yeah.
before we move on from this photo, the question I had earlier was, can you create like a lot of texture in that so that the photography will kind of make it show up differently or maybe not reflect it completely clear? And it looks like there's a lot of texture on the moon and on the tree itself to really give that bark-like texture to it. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah. Great question. Another great question, man. That's part of the strategy in a way. You know, you're trying to think of how the ice is going to refract the light. And from a technical side, the competitions are judged, and so there's categories, and some of the categories can be like surface textures. You know, if you just have the
Oh,
whole
sure.
thing just flat and glassy, that's just one type. But if you show different textures, so one part that I was trying to kind of add visually and um, to the score sheet as well, I guess you could say, was the moon. And I talked to Scott and I was like, "Hey, can you get some dry ice?" And this is in the middle of winter, and we're probably the only carving team that ever brought dry ice up there in the middle of winter. And what I wanted to do with the dry ice was, if you put it on top of regular ice, it gives these really cool, naturally sporadic fractures all on the
Okay.
surface. So every 30 seconds or something, we would move a piece of the dry ice another inch, and it would just naturally fracture and crack the ice, and we would move it. And so we gave another sort of internal texture to the moon,
I
to
see
make it look
that.
a little different. Yeah, yeah, it'd be cool if you could see it up close. It's just like uniformly inconsistent. It looked cool.
I like that. That's really, and it's kind of organic too, which I like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of neat, like the way that ice fractures. It can kind of be a nightmare sometimes because it's unpredictable, but it does look pretty neat.
Sure. And then just, this may be an odd question, but I assume that when you start, all of this ice is very clear ice,
Yep, yep.
that they get rid of a lot of the minerals and things that would cause like cloudiness or
Yeah.
air
So
bubbles.
that's exactly what it is. The air bubbles. Yep. The cubes that are in your freezer sit in that ice cube tray. You pour water in there, it just sits and it freezes from like all directions.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the outside of that cube will be clear and the inside will be white. And most of the time,
Hmm.
that's the air bubbles get pushed in because it's in the ambient temperature of the freezer. It all gets pushed from the outside in. These blocks of ice are made by a special machine where the refrigeration is on the bottom. It's freezing from one direction going up, and the water is circulated.
Oh,
So the ice is growing from the bottom, and the water is all circulated. So there's no air bubbles, and impurities get pushed up, and so you end up with a perfectly clear block over time.
okay. Okay. This summer we got into making some super clear ice.
Yeah, how'd it
And
come out?
well, like the Brita pitcher was my first attempt, which only, it doesn't filter out air, but it does filter
Yeah,
out a lot of the. But then Josh got this system where it like sits in a tray where the water, like there's a whole bottom section where the water, like when it settles, it goes through holes to the bottom. So when you lift the frozen ice out, you've lifted only the top layer that's super clear. So your ice
yeah,
is super clear, and all of the
yeah,
bottom is the minerals and cloudiness.
yep, yeah. What'd you do with the clear ice?
It would just used it for drinks and for
Yeah.
I probably boiled some hard boiled eggs and used it when I used it to
Yeah.
just chill the eggs quick.
All right. Well, here's a cool party trick you can do at
Okay.
some
Oh
point.
yeah, tell me.
Okay.
All right. So you just take 2 pieces of ice from your freezer, or if you
Uh-huh.
want to freeze bigger chunks or whatever, a cool experiment with your kids. You put it in a Tupperware. And then you want to go, if you have like a marble countertop, this would probably be best. just because it's flat.
Yeah.
And stick those two pieces and melt and watch the surface where the ice is touching the countertop, and you'll see it kind of change color. It means it's going flat. As soon as they've melt, this might only take like 10 seconds, 20 seconds,
Sure.
30 seconds. Melt them flat and then take them and push them together, and they'll refreeze back together.
Oh yeah.
And you can build it. You can build it that way, and that's
Oh,
how
you
we
could build
sort of
that way.
that's how we build these pieces like that. We fuse the ice back together.
Oh yeah, because the ice cube tray we got makes like perfect squares.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
So that would be cool. It's like you said, ice Lego.
Yeah, you can melt it on the bottom of like a cooking pan, or I don't know, anything that's a flat, smooth.
Right. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to the next picture.
Cool.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. This is another one that Scott and I did. It's same thing in Lake Louise, and this one we called Moonlight Meeting, and it's two abstract wolves, or stylized sort of wolves.
I see.
That the female sort of turned back, looking back towards the male wolf that's coming, towards her. This is cool. These are the type of pieces that I like to do. It's sort of a stylized realistic, or abstract realist. I don't know, but I don't know. It's just what lends itself to what's in my head a little better.
Sure.
So we won the Canadian championship with this one. We got a little trophy.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
And I love
Quite a
this
trophy.
one. This one was super cool. Yeah, Trey, to what you were talking about, we got different textures in there, to refract the light. It's sort of like painting a little bit, right? Because you don't really get shadows with the ice, so you have to add the different surface textures to let it either be clear or cloudy in some sort of fashion, or scuffed up. Yeah, so that was.
There's like this diamond pattern carved into this crescent moon,
Yeah.
on the I guess it's a leaf or a.
Yeah, sometimes you got to just come up with these bases.
Sure.
That hold these things. It had started as a heart. It wanted to make it look a little more like a heart for the meeting type of aspect, but yeah, it's just how it came out. Now this one was pretty challenging because we were flying, or I was flying out there. I live in South Florida. We were flying to Calgary, and we got to Texas, and they canceled my flight, and I didn't make it the next day. And I remember sitting in the hotel room, and I was so down because I put a ton of work into these designs. Like I put in
Sure.
weeks worth of work into this, like figuring it out over and over and redrawing. I thought we had really cool design, and I'm like, why? I'm saying to myself, why do I keep doing this to myself? Doing these competitions and stuff. I'm like, I'm late. I'm going to be a day late to the competition. And I just was talking with Scott and sent him the design, and he started cutting out some pieces, and we rocked and rolled and got it done. And we were just laser focused, and we ended up winning. So it was redeeming in a way.
Yeah, that makes for a great story too.
Yeah, just don't give up.
Don't give up, right?
Yeah.
And I recognize this one because there's a different photo, I think, of this on your Instagram as your profile picture. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wanted to show this one, I guess, because we're in the picture, so you can kind of see the size of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a context for some of this, how big some of them are.
Yeah. I believe the Truth Found in our chat asked earlier, what's the largest piece you've ever made?
I guess go to the next picture, the one of the tiger. You know that one? Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So this was in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is the World Championships. Been going on for, I don't know, 25, 30 years or so. Huge competition, big international competition, and it's broken up into two categories. You have a two-man single block competition, and all of this ice is harvested from the lakes up there.
Okay.
They have a lake, and so they get these huge blocks I think when I went for this the single block, it was like an 8 foot tall block of ice, 4 feet wide, and then the thickness is however cold it is that winter. And the thickness is how thick the ice grows, so it can be up to 3 feet thick. Um, and the first when we did the single block, I remember carving. I was looking inside the piece. It looked like a speck of dust or something, and I looked closer, and it was a freshwater shrimp that was teeny. It was like a half-inch big. And I was like, it really reminded me of Jurassic Park when they had the little mosquito.
Oh yeah, in the
It
amber.
was like that. I was like, wow, this looks so cool. We found it in there. So you get some natural things that happen in the ice because it's taken from the lake. This piece is from the multi-block competition, part of the competition, which is 6 days, 6 days straight, work as much as you want, outside in Alaska. And it's a 4-person team. And there's an amazing crew that works with Ice Alaska. They drive like these boom forklifts, like big, arms that come out. And so you can lift up these blocks of ice that are, I don't know, like 4 or 5 tons each block of ice. They're massive. And so we're constantly moving around these big blocks of ice. So this is a tiger. Overall, it's about 30 feet wide and maybe, I don't know, 15, 17 feet tall or so. Tiger fighting a gladiator. My primary job was to do the gladiator, so I spent most of the time on that. And then I was with my buddy Paul Miller from Texas, Shinichi Nakamura, and we got invited by Junichi Nakamura, who's easily hands down the best ice carver to ever do. He's like the Michael Jordan of ice carving.
Wow.
He's this like 60-year-old Japanese guy that has just been making amazing sculptures for years and years and years. And so it's always been an incredible honor when you get a call from him to be a part of one of his teams. And this was my 3rd time working with him. And it's just, you get a call from the best in the world, calls you up to do something that's pretty special.
Of course.
And he's great to work with, broken Japanese, and gets excited about stuff, and it's just, he does really wild sculptures. So this was his design. And you just follow whatever he tells you to do. Like,
Sure.
you go with it. So we were happy with this one. It's really cool. Came out good.
I want to point out 2 things about this that stand out to me as like wow factor things. First of all, it's massive.
Yeah.
Actually, that makes it 3 things. Yeah, this is massive. Like that gladiator is like a real human size.
Yeah.
From what I can tell.
He would probably be, around 6 foot or so.
Okay. And then the other thing is that are those whiskers on the tiger?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
What?
So this is
Yeah.
part of the genius of working with Junichi is like he has every detail planned out. I do a lot of work with my designs, and he designs for years on stuff. And it's just amazing the architect side of it and the thought process of composing a piece like this, like assembling it, how you're going to lift up these different pieces and put them 10, 12, 20 feet in the air, whatever, 1,000-pound pieces. So the whiskers, he had a sled or a little sled and said, hey, fill it with snow. And Shinichi was the other guy who was carving the whiskers. Each one was probably 12 to 15 inches and about maybe a half-inch thick, maybe.
Wow.
And they were curved. So we had to make a bunch extra because you're going to break them. It's just how it goes when you go to assemble it. So he said, make them. And then in the sled filled with snow, you're going to put them in the sled to store them. So they're all pointing up in this sled just for storage, so they weren't sitting on their side and they would break. They're like insanely fragile. I just think it's cool working with someone that thinks about that stuff so far ahead of time, every little detail.
Yeah.
And how it's all going to work.
That's so cool. And then the third thing I want to point out is you said you worked primarily on the gladiator. There are elements of this gladiator that are like in motion, fluid, like hair and what would be feathers or maybe horsehair on his helmet, and then the fabric of the tunic or the whatever he's wearing, the clothing he's wearing. And I'm looking at this like that's, I mean, if this was somehow colorized, you would think it was real life. That is how good this is.
Yeah, you got to study the muscles and how they twist and how they turn based on the body position.
Yeah, you can see the
Uh,
muscles. It's
yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah. And I just spent, it was the most time I'd ever spent on one piece. Like I probably spent 5 days on him just cutting him out.
Sure.
And you go really slow with it. I mean, ice is as far as an art form, I think it's pretty fast what you can do with ice. But just went slow with this and like hand sanding with I don't know, like 80 grit sandpaper, just each of the muscles, and trying
Okay.
to get in there and just polish it. And they're just trying to take it to as much perfection as you can.
I think what makes this piece easy to see as well is that it's not super crystal clear. It's got a little bit of a frostedness to it.
Yeah, you need that. Sometimes it's not good to, typically most people would torch a piece and melt it crystal clear. Just blanket the whole piece with a torch. And it's cool to do that, but sometimes it doesn't always lend to the photography really well. That frosted part can look really cool.
Right. I love this.
This is stunning.
Yeah, it was really amazing just lifting these pieces. So the tail was added on, and I'm gonna say it probably started off, or the tail itself probably weighs easily 300 pounds, and so we had it strapped and then lifted up by this crane, like big forklift comes in, and the thing's like swinging. We're trying to fit it in to the
Yikes.
little wedge we cut kind of in the butt of the tiger, and we spent a while on this trying to get it in there, and it wasn't sticking. And then we got it just right, and then it like fell and cracked and it broke into like 4 pieces. And
No.
yeah, oh, it was brutal. And then we had to take it apart, and you sort of got to reassemble it. And what's can be good about that is the ice, if it fractures clean, you can put it back together and get some water in there, and it'll go back together. If it shatters, you're done. If it shatters, but if it fractures clean, and then we ended up turning the tail so it would come out of the back and connected to the back foot to sort of support it a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that feels like a near miss.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
part of it though. You got to adapt. You're gonna
Sure.
break stuff. You don't know if it's gonna collapse or whatever.
I feel like I'm just going to keep saying wow for the
Yeah.
rest of these viewing of these sculptures.
Yeah. I'm glad you let me share the pictures. I know I was emailing you. I was like, all right, can I share some pictures? It just,
Yeah.
I wish the whoever's listening in audio, you could see it, but you just got to have the context of it. It's really amazing. A lot of these pieces, like I'm not just saying about myself, but what people make, and to see them, you got to see them like next to somebody, and you can see the size.
Yeah, and you can in this. So you can go to Ben Rand Ice Studio on Instagram, or you can go to his website and see some of the photos so that you can kind of follow along if you're just listening, or be safe and pull over and look, or do it later if you're driving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I move to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. And I tried really hard before I do that. I tried really hard when you sent them not to look too closely because I wanted to have like a genuine reaction on the show.
Yeah. Okay. That's a professional move.
Yeah. Well, I tried. Oh, what is this?
So
Okay.
this was last winter.
Okay.
Again in Lake Louise. This is with my buddy Kevin Roscoe out of Seattle. We teamed up to make this one, and this was a cartoon moose kayaking over a wave with a squirrel up in the front of his kayak. And I kind of like to do the cartoon stylized sort of stuff. It's sort of like a secret strategy for the competition stuff. Like if you end up doing something realistic, it's like gymnastics or all these other judge things. You start at 100 and then they take away. So anything that you put in there that a judge can score against is gonna be noticed and taken away from your score. So doing things realistic, you look and like proportions kind of matter a lot more. somebody's nose is much bigger than it's supposed to be on their face, people notice. So that's points off. But if you do cartoons and you do abstract sort of stuff, it's not really judged in the same way. So I like doing the cartoon stuff, and it's kind of fun. So this was 3 days on this piece, and it was the warmest it had ever been, I think, for Lake Louise in this competition. The last day it got up to like almost 40, mid 40s, and that's terrible.
I was going to ask how difficult that is.
Yeah, it was melting, like especially these larger pieces that you're just working on. There's so much weight on some of these seams. Really trying to cantilever different aspects out far and make it dynamic looking. So this one, here's some adversity. We were trying to do the paddle. We broke the shaft of the paddle. We broke that 3 times.
Oh no!
Trying to put it in there. We'd fit it in there and be like, no, take it off. Let's shave it and move it a little bit more. Okay, and then we put it back in the break. And then we're like, okay, whatever. Go try it again. And you're exhausted. And you just keep doing it. And then at the very end of it, so you have the big wave, and then right underneath it, we had to reinsert. There was a little strut of ice sort of supporting all that weight that was hanging out. And Kevin was cutting away the strut with his saw. He's got a saw in there cutting, and then we're watching it. And just when he gets to the end of cutting the strut, the whole top half of the piece, which is probably 1,500 pounds, 2,000 pounds, the whole thing shifts like a half inch. The seam had like ripped apart because it was so warm. And I've never seen a sculpture do this. Typically, any sort of movement like that would just be the whole thing would shatter. And so he's got his saw and he's cutting through it, and 1,000 pounds comes in, tink, and like pinches his saw inside this thing, and he peeks around the corner. He's like, dude, my saw's stuck. I can't get my saw into this thing. And we're like, oh, like any movement, the thing is going to fall down. And there's like 10 minutes left in the competition. So we come back and we put another piece of ice in there to sort of support it. And then we're able to get the saw out. But it was going to fall down at like any second.
All that in 10 minutes. Like I can't, no pressure. There's no blood pressure happening. There's
no panic attack.
There's no anxiety, right?
But Kevin was great. He's one of the original ice carvers, I guess you'd say. He's been around quite a while. He's been in every situation, so it was great to have kind of a veteran, calmingness a part of it. He's like, yeah, we'll get together. We'll just do this and this, and we'll get together. So.
Well, it sounds like you get to work with some amazing people as well.
Yeah, I really do. And meet a lot of great people along the way. There's just. I'm proud of the work that I've done, but I see some other people's stuff. I'm always blown away, and they're just artists at another level. The sand sculptors, or some of the stuff they do is just mind blowing.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of talented people out there.
Kaz said in the chat, Kevin was the chaos eater.
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy.
Have you been tempted to try other types of carving because of this?
Yeah. So this past summer, my wife's family's Italian, and we were vacationing over there. It's in her family's from a small town in northern Italy, and it's a really cool town. They have a lot of these great stone carvings spread out all through the town. So it's a very artistic small town. It's only like 3,000 people, and they had a stone sculpting competition this summer. And I never carved stone. I always wanted to try it, so I sort of weaseled my way into the competition or the event. And I was like, I would love to try this. And we know some people in the town, so they started talking to the coordinator. Like, sure, you can be a part of it. If you want to try it out. So that was definitely another chapter in my book called I Bite Off Way More Than I Can Chew, because I got into this. I'm like, this is going to be a cool stone carving. I pick out the stone. I'm like, I want this big stone that you got here. and I get like 30 seconds into it. I'm like, there's all these professional stone sculptors. I'm like, this is seriously what you guys do? Like, I come from ice where you can cut through it, and these cuts that I was trying to make in the stone were taking like forever.
Sure.
It's very hard. They are completely different substances, and so I got my butt kicked with that one. But I just kept charging through it, figured it out.
That's awesome, though. I
Yeah.
really like that part of the story that you were just going to go for it.
Yeah, I started looking around, seeing what the other carvers were doing. I was like, okay, that's how you do it. Like, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know the process. You know, it's
To
different.
enter a competition at that level, that's like so.
I do that all the time. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Yeah, like some of the jobs that I've taken, I really had no business doing the jobs. Like, but I figured it out. You know?
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is. You know?
We were talking about that the last podcast, that success is made up of having a set of skills that you know, not knowing what you are doing next, and having to improvise, and combining all of that to find some level of success when you're faced with challenges that you may not have encountered before. And it sounds like you found success.
Yeah, it's hard work and perseverance. You know,
Sure.
you keep going through it. That one, I definitely wanted to give up on. I was like, my wife was telling me, she was like, why are you doing this? I'm like 6 or 7 days into it, like carving this thing. And it is, I don't know, 500 times slower than ice or whatever. Like, it's
Wow.
just ridiculously different, you know, but it's forever, lasts forever.
True. Yeah.
I did a wood carving. I got hired from a friend of mine. This buddy told another friend, and he's like, oh, you got to meet this guy. He does cool carvings or whatever. And this guy's like, oh, I live in Washington State. I want you to make a wood carving for me. Like, I love Sasquatch. I want you to make a Sasquatch. I was like, okay, cool. And I've only done a couple of small wood carvings. And he's like, what do we need? And I was like, you know, Western red cedar or whatever. My buddy Chris Foltz told me about it, the trees to get, because he's out in Oregon in that area.
Okay.
And so this guy gets like a 10-foot tall Western red cedar that's like 4 feet thick. And I've only done, you know, small wood carvings like this. And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. You know, that one kicked my ass too. You know? Like, my buddy Chris Foltz, he came down from Oregon with a bunch of tools, big saws, and we were able to make it happen. That one came out really neat.
I was gonna say, if we knew you before, we would point you in the direction of Griffin Ramsey or something.
Oh yes, I met her before. Yeah.
Have you? Yeah,
Yeah.
we had her on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah, she was in it when we were doing that tiger. She was up in Alaska at that competition.
Sweet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's pretty great too.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. It's a small world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's been. I enjoy what I do. You know, thank you for giving an obscure artist like myself a place to chat about stuff. So, yeah, it's been a great career for me. I like it. You know, I hope people, you know, are able to pursue their passion, whatever it is. You know, through hard work. You just, a failure is important. I think it's the biggest point where you'll grow is from failure. You know, you're gonna be like, this is not the way to do it. I gotta go the other way. You know, it challenges you.
Right.
Yeah, it challenges you to grow. I mean, you know, any adversity, you're always going to grow from it. So don't be afraid of failing. You know.
That's solid advice, and I think that goes for pretty much every art form.
Yeah, I think if you're not crashing or you're not, you know, failing, you're not trying hard enough. You know,
Then and not to be scared to fail. I think, like what you said, you can't let that stop you or slow you down or make you not do it anyway. Like the competition. I'm gonna keep bringing that up now. That's hilarious. I love that you did that anyway. I really do. Like I'm like, what an underdog story. Even if you didn't win, like the fact that you went and did it anyway is just.
I didn't have
anyway.
Tools. I went with a couple tools. I borrowed a grinder from our 80-year-old family friend. And this grinder was like from I don't know, the 60s or something. And I'm like, got some disc from the hardware store trying to chip into this stone, and I got these professional stone sculptors beside me, like ripping through it, and I'm like having a difficulty over here.
Well, and you said stone is forever, so like somewhere that still exists.
Yeah, they're going to keep it in the town, and so
Oh,
I can't wait to sort of go back every year and see.
yeah.
I want to see some moss growing on it, or the mayor said he was going to put it up by the town hall, so I thought that was a nice compliment.
That's so
so
cool.
Oh, that's so awesome. If you don't mind sharing, what city or what province is it in?
Yeah, it's in Emilio Romano in a town called Fanano. It's a small town. It's about an hour and a half from Bologna, and it's up in the mountains.
Okay.
Well, if we
What a
have any listeners up there, please take a picture of the sculptures right outside of the city hall, and please send it to us.
yeah, and or
Yeah,
tag us or something.
it is on my Instagram. You look through there.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
I love that. And what a testament to doing it anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to try
Yeah.
it. I've just I'm thankful for getting myself into these tough situations that I get to try different things, try new stuff. But, I think it's important.
I think like just dive in should be like the shirt you wear
Yeah.
sometimes when you do some of this stuff.
Well, Ben, we have two last questions here. Number one, for those that are just finding their way into sculpting, doesn't have to be ice, doesn't have to be wood, but really any kind of sculpture. What piece of advice would you give someone who's just starting out?
Work harder. Yeah, just whatever you're doing, work harder than you are. I'm not a study. I mean, I was in that kitchen and just making a lemon basket, which was just a couple of simple cuts into it, and then he's like, "Oh, you can make vegetables out of carrots and different things," and just look at things differently. I started looking at flowers, and I was like, "Wait a minute, well, what does that look like? What's the shape?"
Mm-hmm.
Sculpture is really shapes. To break it down in its most simplest form, you're either pushing something in or you're leaving it up. The line's either straight or it's curved, and from there you can make anything you want. What's sticking out, what's got to be pushed in, what are the lines. So the process is important. Sort of try to refine the process. When I first started out, it's like I wanted to jump to the details. It's like what I first noticed in sculptures was the details, but it's the last part of it. You have to get the outline, and you have to get the shape, and then the detail. So try to focus on the process and learn from other people is the biggest thing. Like I worked for free for a lot of different companies for a lot of years. I was like, I love carving. I don't even care. I'll come and work for you. I used to call people up and say that, and you learn a lot from them, and stuff comes out of it. So.
It's awesome. That's some solid advice. The other question I have, we want to make sure that our listening audience can stay in touch with you, keep up to date with all of the competitions that you're going and entering. Where are some of the best places that our listening audience can go find you and stay in touch?
Instagram's probably the best avenue.
Okay.
I don't stay up to date with the website, so Instagram's the best thing. I know, Emily, you're in Minnesota. I'll be in Minnesota at the end of January for an ice carving competition at the Vikings training facility.
Awesome.
At the end of January. So if anybody's in that area, you can come and check it out. I think it's the last weekend in January.
Okay. That's at the TCO Performance Center in Eagan, Minnesota.
Okay. Yep.
Amazing. Well,
Awesome.
yeah, Ben, thank you so much for spending time with us today. This truly, your work speaks volumes. And I love the insight that you've given to us today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we go, I want to make sure that our listening audience has his Instagram at Ben Rand, RAND Ice Studio, And then benrandicestudio.com is his website.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Em. As we close this episode out today, this episode, along with probably every other one, is going to be dedicated to Joe Capone, our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager, and greatly missed friend. You can find us pretty much wherever you tune into podcasts. For updates, announcements, and more, follow us on social media. We stream live every Monday night, but we do make some exceptions if we need to. So definitely check out those posts to let so you know when we're streaming. We also have a Patreon. If you would like exclusive access to behind-the-scenes content that no one else can see, check out Patreon with the Mod Rom. There are different tiers for different subscriber tiers that you get access to. So do not feel like you have to go to the highest one, though we would greatly appreciate it at any subscriber level. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.